Hello, hi, and welcome to another episode of Wellness in the Workplace. My name is Mbali Mziane, and I am your host. Wellness in the Workplace is a podcast that aims to equip new and experienced professionals with the tools and insights to navigate different workplace dynamics. Today, I am in conversation with somebody I would like to call a game changer, a trailblazer, a pace setter in in the space that she is in. She's currently the Managing Director of Youth Development Collaboration Lab. She is a board member across a number of organizations in the NGO sector, a youth development advocate. Her name is Duduzile Nyumbeka. Welcome to Wellness in the Workplace.
Thank you, Mbali. It's so great to be here.
Thank you for being here, for making the time to be here. And we're talking about something really, really interesting. We're talking about next generation leadership, right? I mean, you're someone whose career trajectory just went up very early on. I mean, I recall you mentioning that, you're a CEO of an NGO by the time you were 26, still figuring things out yourself as a young adult, firstly. Let's talk about that. Secondly, as a professional, right? And now you are at the helm of an organization, leading it in its strategy, in its growth, and just managing and balancing all of those, responsibilities that come professionally, but also some that may trickle into your professional life that were guided by some of your personal development. But before we talk about all of that, I want us to talk a bit more about your journey. Who is Duduzile, and how did you get to be where you are today?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm the eldest of five. Nkuliso Ukokwami, my paternal grandmother in the East Rand in Katlehong. And I suppose what really shaped me was my dad's work ethic. My dad was actually a taxi driver. My great-grandmother owned a taxi, so I come from a very taxi-oriented family, but also very entrepreneurial. So my great-grandmother used to sell chickens, and at some point at her house there was a tavern, so she'd sell alcohol and amatumbu. So there was always something happening in my family, but I think for me, what inspired and groomed me was seeing my dad, my grandmothers, and just uncles constantly waking up in the early hours of the morning and just going to work. And that really shaped my work ethic around how hard life can be, but how important it is to work hard. And to work for your livelihood, to put an honest day's work. And also just the affirmations. Kulisa Ukoko comes with a lot of privileges with affirmations. I think my grandmother and my grandfather spoke a lot of life into my life. I mean, years later, when I got the opportunity to go study overseas, I recall having a conversation with my grandmother, and she said, your grandfather used to play with you, and he would say, Dudu will grow up and go study abroad. She will be a doctor. She'll be the first in the family. And that actually happened. So my grandparents speaking life into me, the affirmations, and them just affirming and validating me in this space to say, you can do it. You can be anything. And that's just been my childhood. That was my childhood. My dad blasting on music, putting on Ibum Shaka or whoever, and calling me to come dance. During Sunday, after Sunday dinner, my grandmother asking me to come and recite my poems or whatever in front of the family really did shape me and my aspirations and my ambitions that resulted into my work ethic, I suppose. And I suppose I didn't also have a choice because I was the eldest of five, like I said. So what do they call it in Zulu? Mafunga. So you have no choice but to charter the road ahead for your siblings. But it didn't come without my family's support.
So leading in your family structure, or leading in the family home, that then later transpired into leading, in business. But I want to talk a bit more about then that transition from being a student to then working, and also just that period where you spent a bit of time abroad, because I do think that, having a global perspective really does influence how you approach your work, how you approach problems in the workplace. And so let's talk a bit more about, you were studying at Northwest University, went ahead, did your honors, and the next thing you know, you're doing your master's overseas, and then you came back to SA. Let's talk about that part of your journey.
So it's quite interesting. I always look back at my life in university and how it was really, I'm a person of faith. It was really God ordained. Because like I said, my dad was a taxi driver. I was raised by my grandmother. I was the first in my family to go to university. And that alone was enough for me to really be disciplined.
Sure.
And that's where I think the mindset that actually is an important skill set to have in leadership and in businesses, discipline to have, started. My grandmother funded my university with her pension money. And by the time I was doing my second year, I then realized, hey, I'm doing well academically, perhaps I could tutor. So then I started tutoring to earn a little bit of money. And sent some money at home because a bunch of whatever was supposed to sustain my family was now paying for my tuition. And working very hard and pushing myself and taking risks.
Yes.
I remember in my mind thinking, okay, I come to the library, I'm studying, I'm doing my own thing. And there was an opportunity for SRC. And there were elections. And I remember having a conversation with a friend and I was like, I think I'm going to run. And I recall someone saying, oh, but you're not popular, isn't the SRC, they want these popular comrades.
Yes.
And I remember thinking to myself, I'm different. And I think there are other people who are different like me.
Sure.
Who would see me different and who would resonate with me.
Sure.
And so I've always liked taking chances and taking calculated risks, but also with this, what's there to lose, right? So, I mean, if I don't get this opportunity, well, at least I tried. So I was then in the SRC, and when I was in varsity, at some point I worked at the university as a research support assistant. Around that time, I was actually starting my master's at Northwest University. There was then an opportunity by the French embassy for me to go overseas, to go to France to do my master's. And I remember I was working at the university full time and studying. I mean, I just started my master's degree. And I remember going to the office of my then employer, my boss, and saying to him, I've been awarded this opportunity to go and study in France for 18 months. I know I'm working here full time and I'm studying, but I think this is a great opportunity.
Sure.
And I remember he looked at me and he said, I think you should stay. He said, the standard in Europe is very tough and it's very high. And here, I mean, you're working here at the university, you're in the SRC, you're working full time and you're doing your master's and you're doing, your research support assistant and, you could go into lecturing. And I remember sitting thinking, I mean, I'm just barely 22 and I've already achieved all these things. And I just needed 2 more years to hit the glass ceiling. From an academic perspective. I mean, as leadership was concerned, I mean, I had no intention of becoming a professor. And I remember thinking, no,
there has to be more.
And he said, there has to be more, right? And he said, go home and pray about it. Well, he was a theologian by practice. And I went home and I said to my grandmother, here's an opportunity. The French embassy wants to pay for my studies to go study overseas. And I don't have to pay them back. And my grandmother said, go. She said, go. And if you go there and you fail, then you would have gotten the experience money can buy. Because essentially someone paid for this. But you can't, why would you fail, right? Why would you fail? Why would you squander this opportunity? And so at 21 years, I packed my bags and I flew to France. And I lived there for 18 months. And that was the best 18 months of my life.
Sure.
Not just studying overseas, for the vibe, but the exposure, the global perspective, to truly understand the way and the way of life from different, people. We had students from Russia, students from Turkey, and that mix and that environment really catapults a lot for me in terms of my ideas around who I was, my worldview, my belief system, and also how I relate to other people.
Sure. I mean, that's a very pivotal moment, I think, a moment that I would call as a point of inflection in your personhood, number one. But secondly, in your becoming as a leader and as a professional. I want to now pivot into, now you are 26, you are leading this organization with no, leadership experience.
No
executive experience, exactly, at that level.
Yeah.
Where are you mindset-wise? Where are you in terms of also just your career development, and what are the things that are around you supporting you in that first step?
I think I look back. Actually, I was reflecting on this morning, and I look back on how, even though in my early years, being young, was in primary school as a prefect. In high school, I founded a school newsletter when I was in grade 9, and had people in grade 11 writing as journalists for my newsletter, pretty much being an editor, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Yes.
But I've always been privileged to be very reflective of the opportunities and the opportunities just presented to me. And so the idea or the opportunity to lead Project Disease at 26 years at that time came at a very pivotal point in my life. I had just been back in the country a few years ago, and I was working for a political party because I studied political science, and I thought, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to work in politics. And I remember, and I just recall sitting in the office one morning and thinking, there's got to be more. I'm meant for impact. That's what drives me, seeing changing people's lives. And I'm not saying politicians don't do that, but I wanted real impact, not sitting in a political office and people come by appointment and so forth. And so fast forward, I get introduced to Alan Nord-Craig Jr., who's the founder of Project Isizwe. And it was the idea behind why Isizwe existed to begin with. The idea of digital inclusion and bridging the digital divide, and the opportunities it could open. And that definitely resonated with me. It resonated to how I was in the middle of France with my grandmother, who wasn't a digital nomad. And before I left, I had to figure out, how do we communicate? I had to get a dongle and for us to connect. And so here this gentleman is telling me about this organization he's founded and the people whose lives this organization is changing. And for me, that was enough for me to say, I'm jumping in on this. And I think, just like other leaders before who've given me opportunities, and I think the support Ellen Nord-Craig gave me in terms of supporting me as a young CEO, and the board was very enormous, because I came in as a young person with the passion, right? We're going to bridge the digital divide. I'm going to advocate for everyone to get the opportunity to be connected in the country, to access the opportunities I've been able to access. And advocacy alone and activism alone wasn't enough for me to be able to lead
Sure.
an organization as big as Project Caesar. But I think I was just so fortunate to have a support structure from the board, from the founder of the organization, and essentially from the community that I came from. I mean, for the first time in my neighborhood, you know, someone would
There was
say,
a CEO.
yeah, you know, I grew up with this person, you know,
Yes.
I'm seeing, I recall when I do interviews, either with, you know, on TV, later on in the evening, my grandmother's house would be packed with young girls coming to say, we saw you, and taking pictures. And that for me was also a support system that I needed, that affirmed and encouraged me every day to do the work that I had been called to do at that time.
Sure. So I remember in another interview I had with one of our guests, and she also rose to, you know, an executive leadership position quite young. I think she was 29. She mentioned that, you know, the gap that she realized when she got there is that, yes, I have the hard skills, the technical know-how, the intellect, but I was lacking the emotional intelligence. I was lacking the political savviness to be able to navigate the space in a way that would not only propel my career, but also bring influence into some of the work that I was doing. What do you think were some of those skills that you realized may have been a bit of a gap, that even your technical ability and your vision and your passion just couldn't make up for?
For me, it was actually the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I was running an NPO that was in the telecom space. Remember, I did my master's in political science.
I see.
And public policy.
Yes,
so
yes.
The emotional intelligence, the political savviness, and prior to leading Project Caesar, I'd worked in the political space. I'd been in middle management positions at a very young age, but it was the technical elements in the telecom space.
Yes.
It was now, how do I take my advocacy and activism mode and match that to discuss technical issues around the telecoms space, and how do I put on my advocacy hat and match that when I'm in a room with, for instance, a councillor from ICASA, and we're talking about a spectrum issue, right? So how do I match my advocacy work with the technical element? And I think at that time, the COO of the organization had over 40 years of experience in the telecom space. So I was surrounded by these older men who had a lot of experience within the telecom space. And my drive and eagerness to learn allowed for me to, you know, grab the information and just be honest with myself that I mean, I'm not a telecoms guru, but I very quickly I realized I'm going to have to learn the space. I'm going to have to learn the juggle. The juggle. I'm going to have to learn, what do they mean by mesh? What do they mean by Wi-Fi? What do they mean, and I had to learn that quickly in order to show up and be taken seriously.
Sure.
Because, I mean, you are looking at a young 26-year-old black girl who's now suddenly a CEO of an internationally recognized organization. And there's already questions. I mean, what do you know about telecoms? I mean, we've never seen you. I mean, you're having conversations with men who've been in the space. And I mean, it still is a male-dominated space.
Yeah.
You're having conversations with men who've been in the space for 30 years. And so having to learn and brush up on the technical elements was very key. But the support that I had from the COO, from the techs on the ground who were doing the work was very key for me to show up in rooms and have a conversation and know what it is that I'm really advocating for.
Yeah. And how are you balancing then this, authority in those rooms with that authenticity of, I actually am still learning, And yes, I am young, but I do come with, some experience in the spaces that I've been in that are also impactful in this arena. Granted, I don't have the technical skills and the technical background, but, I still have a voice. So how are you balancing that authenticity, which was a real truth and a fact in terms of where you were at the time, and also just that authority to say that, this is who I am. I am leading this organization, and I have to be decisive in my decision making and influence.
It feels like such a blur because I was so young at that time. But a lot of the time for me, and even till this day, I would say there's been a lot of reflection and a lot of intentionality, and just really looking within, like, do I have to prove myself to this person? Right? I'm here now, and whatever it is that they thought of me before I walked into this room, am I in the business to prove them wrong?
Sure.
Or am I here to do what it is that I'm meant to do, what I'm called to do? And if I do it exceptionally well, maybe when I leave this room, this person's going to have a different perspective of me. But I must say, the industry, the telecoms industry, and still up to this day, it's very male dominated. And I was young, so there was a lot of ageism. I recall walking into meetings at the time with my COO, and essentially people or gentlemen were in a meeting and they'd direct questions and conversations to him. So it seemed like I'm just sitting there like as a little purse. And that can have quite an impact on your confidence.
Yeah.
And so because I'm such a very assertive person, I would, I recall my grandmother saying to me back when I was in varsity in France, and I'd call home and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, and crying. And I recall her saying, never leave the room without them knowing who you are. Say something, contribute. That's why you are called into that room. And so I'd make it a point to prepare for meetings. I'd make it a point to read up on the people we would meet. I'd make it a point to know who was doing what within the ecosystem at the time, and speak up about it. But also tread very carefully, because at that time, and I think a bunch of, I was in a civil society organization that's looking for partners and looking for funders.
Sure.
And so you don't want to come off as this, the space is more male dominated, and, I'm just a 26-year-old. So it was a matter of me balancing, I'm here, I'm taking up my space, but I'd also like to learn. Without dimming my lights.
Sure.
And just sitting in my little corner when, the big boys are having a conversation. And that did work out for me, I think. But it didn't come off without struggle. Without struggle.
I can imagine.
It was very interesting. There's a lot of ageism around when you are, especially if you're in a sector that is male dominated and has older people. There's a lot of ageism, and now you're finding yourself, you have to, work against patriarchy, a male dominated system, and or industry, and constantly being second guessed. That you are young, you are young. Oh, what did you study again?
Yes.
So it's asserting your space, but also being humble to say, since you know so much, then this is the opportunity for you to teach me.
Sure.
Because you're not going to be here forever, are you? That's really worked out. It really did work out in that way.
I mean, you're talking about just the intersectionality, right, of being a young Black woman, and some of the challenges that come and manifests themselves as, unconscious bias in the workplace. Because I don't honestly think that some people are aware that they're doing the things that they're doing, right? And it does take that moment of maybe bringing them to that awareness to say, no, actually, this is how we can approach this situation, or asserting yourself in the way that you've said, that gets them to realize that there might be a bias that I'm holding on to here. But fast forward to now, I mean, you are again at the helm of another great organization, Youth Development Collaboration Lab. You are, I think, just past a decade over your last leadership position. And I want to talk about you as a leader right now. How would you describe your leadership style?
I don't have a leadership style. And let me explain what do I mean by that. After ACESO, I've had other executive leadership opportunities, and I quickly realized that you lead people, you meet people where they are when you lead them, and you're not leading numbers or titles. You are leading people that have other titles outside of this office, and I've always tried to lead with empathy and lead with empowerment. I always looked at how I empower the team and the rest of the organization to show up and run. Because when you're sitting with someone as a leader and you're saying, what is it that you bring as a value here? People tend to be like, oh, this is very tough. How do I explain this? But when you turn the question around and you say, Bali, you're a subject matter expert here. And this organization is so lucky to have you. As a subject matter expert, you have this amazing responsibility to lead us in this particular department. Where would you like my support? Where can I support you better? It suddenly changes. The motivation, the relationship, how the person relates to their work is different. They suddenly see their role as a calling rather than a job, because I'm a subject matter expert. And so what I do is I link what it is that the people I lead do daily at the office to what it is that they represent. So you're not just a project manager, you're a subject matter expert in terms of project management. And so we rely on you on this, right? I'm not here to tell you how to do your job because you're great at it and that's why you're here. Where do I support you to do better and to shine? And it just creates a different relationship.
Yeah.
Creates a different culture within the organization.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it also, makes the person on the receiving end of that kind of support more accountable, not only to themselves, but the work that they do, right? And it calls them to take on a leadership role of some sort. So I appreciate that. What do you think are some of the tough decisions you've had to make as a leader?
Letting go of people.
How do you handle that?
Gosh, that's hard. That's hard because it's not a vain decision to wake up and decide, this isn't working out. It comes after lots of interventions and supports and interventions and so forth. And to decide, I can't. The organization, I need to make this decision, not for me, but for the organization. I think I read somewhere where a strategist says culture eats strategy for breakfast. Often when you are in a leadership position and you work with people, you find yourself with people surrounding or working in the team who have a very toxic culture that could be in a form of complacency and delivering the work, or just bringing the environment down. And as a leader, you then have the responsibility to protect the organization's culture, to protect the organization's growth. And that comes with difficult decisions. And unfortunately, part of them is letting people go. And letting people go.
How do you build trust then in situations like that? Because if your staff has now seen you let someone go, they could very well be thinking, I could be next. And that creates a non-trusting culture. How do you then preserve the integrity of those relationships while communicating the decisiveness of a decision like that?
I think for me, and this has been my recent experience over the last couple of years, is to always show leadership within the team in terms of support and appraising people. You know, if we're in a staff meeting, to give a shout out. Hey, buddy, thank you so much for doing that. The organization is so grateful. Great work, well done on this project. You did so well. And to then criticize in private. But I've found during the one-on-one meetings that I would have with the team, and I still do now, people tend to open up, right? If you start the conversation around, so what's working? You know, how are we doing? You know, so we're talking about your work. What are the bottlenecks? What are the hindrances within the organization? Where do you want me to assist? People start opening up. And now starting to you sitting and you're thinking, oh no, but Mbadi said it's so difficult because there's literally, I find it hard to deliver on X because so-and-so is taking forever.
Yeah.
So there's dependency with this person. There's dependency with this person. And so you go and you give this person more support. There's interventions. And this is not working out. But to go back during my one-on-one sessions to say, hey, Mbali, I did have a conversation with so-and-so. We are working on this. But just give that person time. And of course, people will start saying, oh, Dudu has let go of this person. How am I next? That only happens if someone is also short-changing the organization and they're not showing up as their best self. But if you're really, truly delivering and you're doing the job, I don't think, and we have an ongoing relationship and ongoing communication, I don't think there's a reason for you to think and believe that I could be next. I think people who are constantly hiding behind other people's thumb, and that's usually an impression people have around us millennials and young people who are in the workplace, that we're not showing up. If you're not showing up and someone else leaves the organization, the only time you start thinking, am I next, is because you're also not showing up as your true self. But I've always, and even now, I try to lead the team with open transparency, communication, reflection, and just calling out on people in terms of accountability and saying, hey, what you are doing or what you're not doing is actually, it has a dependency on the rest of the other sectors and the other departments. And essentially the organization at large. So you need to tell me, where can we support you as a whole? Because your other colleagues are also complaining. And if we really are struggling to support you and you think you can't show up, then we both have to be adult and be honest about this, because we can't bring other people down.
I mean, working for a youth development organization, I'm assuming you're working with a lot of young people. So not only as, your stakeholders, but also people within your team. What do you think are some of the areas that are coming up, or themes that are coming up with working with young people that could potentially hinder their growth in the workplace, and then other areas that you think are really great and something that they just need to bring out and and hone in on, because that's the differentiator in this next generation that we're looking to for leadership.
I think discipline. I think, and this is just having been not just where
this is
I am
lacking
right now.
discipline.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think young people in the workplace tend to be very relaxed, like, I'll see this on Friday. It's only due. I mean, I see on Asana, it says my due date is the 10th. I'll get to it. I mean, that's a bit of procrastination, but just lack of discipline and just really being accountable and showing up. I'm seeing a lot, particularly with young people that I get to interact with. There is no accountability. Oh, I left this because, I felt, this was taking too much, or, my mental health comes first. What does that look like? And when you have the conversations with someone, but you were supposed to deliver on this and this and this. Oh, but I got sick. And then, okay, but then what did you do to inform the team? Oh, but they had to understand. It's the discipline and just taking accountability, right? To say, this is work. I may not be at my best, and I'm not saying we're making people must be workhorses, but to just take accountability, man. Like, I apologize. I know we said we were going to meet at this particular time. Something has come up. Please bear with me. I think it goes a long way. And the discipline to show up even for things that are not glamorous.
Sure.
Because I think as young youth leaders, we really love the glamour. We want to show up when there's cameras, when there's ribbons, when we announce as, you're a trailblazer. But the discipline of waking up and actually doing the hard work when no one sees it. And the work that no one wants to do, the picking up of the banners, the just doing the hard work, that discipline, that getting up in the morning and meeting stakeholders and working with people who you have no idea if you're going to meet them again tomorrow. And the same people who are probably not even going to give you the money that you're looking for. That discipline is so important. I think I've seen it a lot, that it may be something that's a bit lacking, especially with young people within the space. But that has a lot to do with the person's environment. I keep going back to my childhood because I keep thinking, if you're growing up in a home where there are parents that have a strong work ethic, you are bound to want to emulate that.
Sure.
And it becomes a ripple effect. But you're taking young people who are from homes where the mom, the uncle, the aunt have never been employed. And so this concept of waking up, banda, they don't get it. It's cold. Why am I waking up? Where am I going? I'd rather sleep. So they don't have the discipline to get up even when it's cold.
Sure.
But that's lacking. What is great about young people.
Yes. On the positive side.
In the space, it's just the spirit to take risks, man. Young people are change makers. Young people are inspiring. They are not quiet. They're not bystanders. They are asking questions. They are changing the narrative. They're not waiting for the government to come and change things. I mean, at YT Collab, we don't work directly with the youth on the ground. We work with the organizations that work with the youth. So our role, we're essentially an ecosystem enabler.
Sure.
Right? We convene youth development organizations to collaborate better, effectively. We support them with resources, with tools, with capacity building and different platforms and activities to build this bridge and essentially work together to eradicate unemployment, the youth unemployment, and to work together in order to come up with impactful solutions around entrepreneurship for the country. And it's young people driving those agendas. It's young people driving those initiatives. And it's really inspiring to see the passion, the activism, the drive of young people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It keeps you young.
Yes. I'm still you.
Yes.
I'm still you.
You are. You are. What advice would you give to young people who want to lead, but they just don't know how? They just don't know where to start, or they feel like they need to have a platform or a title to be able to lead.
Just start. Just start. I met, we have activities at events at YD called Collaboration Junction. And we had one a few months ago here in Joburg. And there was a young girl who came from Mpumalanga. And she was just fresh out of varsity. And she had started this NPO that's focused on empowering young people to get funding for university. And she came to me and she says, this is what I do. I don't know. I don't have any systems. I just registered my NPO with the Department of Social Development. I don't have any fundraising experience, but I have my story. Someone took a chance on me, and now I have a degree in social science, and I want to do that for my community. I don't want to be the first. And so it's stories like that of someone saying, I'm doing this. I went to my old high school. I'm working with my teachers, and we're doing that. We don't have any funding yet or any backing, but I'm here. I want your advice. I want you to connect me to people who would advise and lead and mentor me. I think constantly, many times people say, oh, find a mentor. My mentor was my grandmother. My mentor was my dad, who was a taxi driver. I think start. Start. Your passion, what it is that you're passionate about, your environment at home is enough to fuel you.
Sure.
And to have the faith that what it is that you're really passionate about and the change that you want to bring, that voice will open the doors and will connect you to people who are like-minded, is enough to get started. Start. Be disciplined. and be humble. You know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's not about the titles. Tomorrow you could be a CEO, tomorrow you could be a COO, but start. Bali, when I finished my master's in France, I came home and I thought, I'm going to get into a senior job. I started as an administrator with a master's degree.
Yeah.
But start.
Yeah.
Start.
Yeah.
And the people who are around you, who see you dedicate yourself, who see you be disciplined, who see you work hard, who see you be inquisitive, will take that chance.
Sure. What would you like your legacy to be as a leader?
Impact. I think the work that I've been doing, either through the work I've done at Project Deciso and other organizations and other NPOs that I get to sit in and lead in terms of an advisory capacity, I've always been driven by impact. How do I translate what I know, what I'm able to do, to reach X amount of young people and to have an impact on how they view themselves tomorrow and how they view their future. Impact.
Sure. I love that. It wouldn't be an episode on this podcast without asking you my bonus questions. So the first one is, what book, podcast, or article have you read or listened to that shifted your perspective about the world of work?
The world of work. There's been so many. But I'm currently listening. Well, to your podcast.
Yay.
That really does shape my perspective around leadership and workplace and culture and wellness. Workplace culture and workplace wellness. Another podcast would be, what is it called? It's women. It's about women founders. And it's really, so this lady interviews different founders of different companies.
Sure.
From just random ladies who are doing different things across different sectors. And it's just really shifted and shaped how I view leadership.
Sure.
And how I view running a business. And also, I'm an avid reader, so I'm constantly reading. But one book that's really shaped how I view leadership and managing people has been, I'm just trying to think, so many books are coming into my head right now.
Yeah.
But it's really been the Bible.
Sure.
It's really been the Bible. If you go into that book, there's so many extracts about leadership. There's so many extracts about leading with empathy, leading yourself. There's so many extracts about emotional intelligence. There's so many extracts about discipline.
Sure.
So what a blessing it is to live in a country and in an age where the book such as the Bible is allowed for us to read and take from.
Sure. What does wellness in the workplace look like for you?
Communication, open communication, clear goals and directions. I think lack of clear goals and directives tend to leave people feeling, am I doing enough? Am I, you don't want people to have that, am I doing enough mindset. So be clear in what it is that you want from your team members, communicate, and hold people accountable. Accountability is really important.
Yeah.
I would say those are key. Because if we have that, then you are setting your organization for a healthy culture, healthy work culture. Because people are suddenly showing up as their best self.
Yes.
And to hold space. If you open up the communication and there's no, I am the leader, you are the subject, or you're lower than me. And you're just having a conversation like you would have with, this is your colleague, right? It opens up a culture or a wellness culture when someone is not feeling well, when someone is struggling, to come to you and say, I'm struggling. And to not feel, if I tell Dudu this, that I'm struggling, or I'd recently been diagnosed with mental health issues, this could be used against me.
Sure.
Because very often people feel that way. So leading with empathy, open communication, and just accountability is, you never go wrong.
Ever. And your parting words around next generation leadership? And I don't know if the previous question kind of answered that. I was thinking about it as you were talking, but you might have something more to share or different to share.
I think for me, I look back in the cohort of young leaders that I've grown up with. We were dealt with a different hand in terms of circumstances and in terms of where the country was from an economic perspective. And I think things are different now with the next generation of leaders. There's AI, there's a lot of technology tools, and they're growing up as digital nomads. And I would say the reliance on technology for operational purposes of the business. That's awesome. But the most strongest tool is
Your mind.
is your mind.
Yeah.
So read a lot, question things, and engage with the content, engage with the people, and question things is what I would leave the next generation of leaders.
Sure.
ChatGPT doesn't always have the answer.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Dudu, thank you so much. This was so enriching. And I think when I was reflecting on just in the preparation for this podcast on your story, it can't be left unsaid about the work that you have done and the impact that you have made. And the work that you continue to do looking ahead. It wasn't just a moment in time. No.
Wasn't a blip.
It wasn't it wasn't just a moment in time. It's work that has impact beyond what you could possibly even comprehend at this stage. So yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for honoring the invitation and just the openness and honesty throughout our chat. Sure. And thank you for watching and listening. This has been another amazing episode of Wellness in the Workplace. So please do continue showing us your support across different platforms. My name is Mbali Mzinyane. This is Wellness in the Workplace. I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.